Speak so they listen. How to be heard without raising your voice. You speak and they interrupt. You explain and they ignore. You repeat and still no one hears. The problem is not that you're not smart enough. The problem is how your energy sounds. Introduction. Why people don't listen even when you're right. You know the feeling. You say something important, something true, and the room keeps moving, the conversation keeps going. Like you didn't speak at all. Or worse, someone else says the exact same thing 5 minutes later, and suddenly everyone listens. It's not about your words. It's not about your ideas. It's not even about being right. It's about how you sound when you speak. The energy behind your voice, the certainty, the ground beneath your words. People don't listen to what you say. They listen to how you say it. They feel the conviction or the hesitation. They feel the clarity or the apology. And they respond to that feeling before they even process your words. This book is not about speaking louder. It's not about dominating conversations or becoming someone you're not. It's about speaking in a way that makes people listen, naturally, without force, without performance. You'll learn why people tune you out even when you're right. The invisible mistakes that kill your authority before you finish your first sentence. Why cover-explaining weakens you. Why speaking slower makes you instantly more powerful. You'll learn how to lower your voice and increase your presence. How a 3-second pause changes everything. Why trying to be liked makes you forgettable. How to structure sentences like someone who's used to being heard. You'll learn how to handle interruptions without losing your calm. How to speak in conflict without exploding. And how to speak once and mean it. Without repeating, without convincing, without begging for attention. By the end of this book, you won't need to raise your voice to be heard. You'll just speak and people will listen. Because you'll sound like someone worth listening to. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The invisible mistake that makes people tune you out. There's a mistake most people make when they speak, and it happens in the first 3 seconds. Before you've even finished your first sentence, people have already decided whether to listen. And most of the time, they decide not to. Not because you're boring, not because you're wrong, but because of how you started. The invisible mistake is this: you ask for permission to speak. Not with your words, with your energy. You start soft, tentative, like you're not sure you should be speaking at all. I was just thinking. Maybe we could. I don't know, just an idea. But that's not a statement. That's an apology. And people don't listen to apologies. They listen to certainty. Another version of this mistake: too many words. You have a point to make, but instead of making it, you bury it in context, in background, in qualifiers. You explain before you've said anything worth explaining. You give reasons before anyone has asked. You justify before anyone has challenged. And by the time you get to the actual point, people have stopped listening. Too many words dilute power. Every extra sentence is a leak. Every qualifier is a crack in your foundation. People who are used to being heard speak in short, clear statements. They don't pad. They don't soften. They just say the thing. Then there's speed. When you speak too fast, you sound nervous, like you're rushing to get the words out before someone stops you, like you're afraid of silence. And people feel that anxiety. They hear it in your pace. and it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them want to move on. Fast speech doesn't sound confident. It sounds like you're trying to convince yourself as much as them. And finally, the soft start. You begin a sentence like you're testing the waters, like you're not sure if you're allowed. Your voice rises at the end like it's a question, even when it's not. I think maybe we should consider. That upward inflection turns statements into questions. It turns authority into uncertainty, and people don't follow uncertainty. They ignore it. Here's the truth: people don't listen to those who ask for permission to speak. They listen to those who speak like they have something worth saying, like they're not worried about whether you'll agree, like they're just stating what is. So the first shift is this: stop asking for permission. Don't start soft. Don't pad your words. Don't rush. Don't apologize for speaking. Just speak like you belong in the conversation, like your words have weight, because they do. Chapter 2. Stop over-explaining. It kills authority. You say something, and then you explain it, and then you explain the explanation. And by the time you're done, no one remembers what you originally said. Over-explaining is one of the fastest ways to lose authority, and most people don't even realize they're doing it. Here's why we do it. We're afraid of being misunderstood. We're afraid of being challenged. We're afraid someone will ask why, and we won't have an answer ready. So we give the answer before they ask. We justify before they question. We explain before they've even decided whether they care. But here's what happens. When you over-explain, you signal doubt. You signal that you're not sure your original statement can stand on its own. And if you're not sure, why should they be? People with authority don't explain unless asked. They make a statement, and they let it land. We're going with option 2. That's it. No justification, no preemptive defense, just a clear decision. And if someone wants to know why, they'll ask, and then you can explain. But you don't lead with it. Long explanations also dilute your point. They give people too many places to disagree, too many details to pick apart. But a short, clear statement is hard to argue with. It's simple. It's direct. It stands alone. Think about the people you respect, the ones whose words carry weight. Do they over-explain? No. They say what they mean, briefly, clearly, and they stop talking. They trust that their words are enough. They don't need to convince you. They're just telling you what is. This doesn't mean you never explain. It means you don't explain by default. You don't assume you need to justify every thought. You make your point, and you let the silence hold it. And if someone wants more, they'll ask. Here's the practice. The next time you're about to explain something, stop, say the main point, and then stop talking. It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel like you're leaving something out. But sit in that discomfort. Let the statement stand. See what happens. Most of the time, nothing happens. People just accept it. Because you said it with certainty. And certainty doesn't need explanation. Confidence is not loud. It is precise. It says exactly what it means, and nothing more. Chapter 3. Speak slower, when instantly. Speed kills authority, not in all contexts, but in most. When you speak fast, you sound anxious, like you're racing to get the words out before someone cuts you off, like you're not sure you deserve the space you're taking. And people hear that. They feel the rush, the urgency, the lack of ground. Slow speech sounds different. It sounds like you have time, like you're not worried about being interrupted, like you trust that people will wait for you to finish, and that trust is magnetic. It makes people lean in. Slowing down also gives your words weight. When you speak quickly, words blur together. They lose distinction. They become noise. But when you speak slowly, each word has space. Each sentence lands. People can actually hear you. Pauses are even more powerful. Most people are terrified of silence, so they fill every gap with words. With I'm and like and you know. But pauses don't make you sound unsure. They make you sound deliberate, like you're choosing your words, like you're not just reacting. Silence creates presence. When you pause, the room quiets. People pay attention because they're waiting to hear what you'll say next. And that waiting, that anticipation, is where your power lies. Here's how to practice this. In your next conversation, speak at half your normal speed. It will feel painfully slow, like you're dragging, but to everyone else, it will sound normal, maybe even slower than normal, but not weird, just clear. And when you finish a thought, pause for 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it sit. Let people absorb what you said. Let the weight of your words settle. You'll notice something. People stop interrupting. They stop jumping in because the pause creates space, and they respect that space. Slow speech also calms your nervous system. When you're anxious, you speed up, but when you slow down, you signal to your body we're okay, there's no rush. And your body responds, your heart rate slows, your breath deepens, and you sound even calmer. This is a loop. Slow speech creates calm. Calm creates presence. Presence makes people listen. So speak slower, not unnaturally, just slower than your instinct, and watch how the room changes, how people lean in, how they wait for your words instead of talking over them. Speed is anxiety, slowness is power. Chapter 4. Lower your voice, increase your power. Your voice has a natural pitch, and when you're calm, it's lower, deeper, more resonant. But when you're anxious, when you're trying to be heard, your voice rises, it tightens, it climbs into your throat, and that higher pitch doesn't sound powerful. It sounds strained, uncertain, like you're asking instead of stating. Lower voices carry authority, not because deeper is inherently better, but because a low voice signals calm, groundedness, stability. High voices signal stress, urgency, fear, and people respond to those signals unconsciously, immediately. You don't have to change your natural voice. You're not trying to sound like someone else. You're just releasing the tension that pushes your voice up. Here's how. When you're about to speak, take a breath, a full breath, into your belly. And as you speak, imagine your voice coming from your chest, not your throat, your chest. Feel the vibration there. Feel the resonance. Also, relax your throat. Most people tighten when they speak, especially when they're nervous, and that tightness raises the pitch. But when you soften your throat, when you let your voice drop, it naturally lowers. You can practice this alone. Feel where the sound resonates. If it's all in your head, your voice is too high. If it's in your chest, you're grounded. And when you speak, aim for that chest resonance, that depth. Lowering your voice also slows you down because you can't speak quickly from your chest. You have to take your time. and that slowness adds to your presence. Here's the thing, you can be shaking inside. You can be terrified. You can feel completely unsure. And still, if you lower your voice, if you speak from your chest, you'll sound confident, because confidence is not about how you feel. It's about how you sound. People trust low, steady voices. They feel safe around them. They listen to them, so practice this. In low-stakes moments, at home, with friends, just lowering your voice slightly, speaking from your chest instead of your throat, and notice how people respond, how they settle, how they pay attention. You don't need to sound like someone else. You just need to sound like the calmest version of yourself. And that version has a lower, steadier voice. Chapter 5. The 3-second rule that changes conversations. Here's a pattern. Someone says something. You react immediately. You respond before they've even finished. You jump in before there's space. And that immediate response makes you sound reactive, defensive, like you weren't listening, like you were just waiting for your turn to talk. The 3-second rule changes this, and it's simple. When someone finishes speaking, count to 3 before you respond, silently, in your head. 1, 2, 3, and then speak. 3 seconds is not long. It's barely noticeable, but it creates a shift. In those 3 seconds, you're not reacting, you're responding. You're choosing your words instead of blurting them, and people feel that difference. The pause also shows respect. It shows you're actually considering what was said, that you're not just waiting to impose your point, and that respect makes people more open to what you say next. The 3-second rule also protects you. When you respond immediately, you're responding from emotion, from the trigger, from the instinct to defend or correct or explain. But when you pause, you give yourself time to shift out of that reactivity, to think, to choose a response that's aligned with who you want to be. This is especially powerful in conflict. When someone challenges you, when someone says something that bothers you, your instinct is to fire back, to defend, to correct. But if you pause, if you count to 3, you can respond from calm instead of from heat, and calm responses carry more weight than reactive ones. Here's how to practice. In your next conversation, don't respond immediately, even if you know what you want to say. Even if the answer is obvious, just pause, count to 3, and then speak. It will feel awkward at first, like you're taking too long, like you're creating uncomfortable silence. But it's not awkward, it's just unfamiliar. And to the other person, it doesn't feel long at all. It just feels considered. The 3-second rule also makes you the calmest person in the room, because everyone else is reacting, jumping in, filling every gap. But you're pausing, and that pause makes you stand out. The most powerful person in the room is not the one who talks the most. It's the one who doesn't rush, the one who takes their time, the one who responds when they're ready, not when they're triggered. So practice the pause, 3 seconds. That's all it takes. And watch how conversations shift. How people start listening more carefully. How your words carry more weight. Because you're not reacting anymore. You're responding. And there's all the difference in the world. Chapter 6. Stop trying to be liked. Here's a hard truth. The more you try to be liked, the less people listen to you. Because when you're trying to be liked, you soften, you hedge, You apologize for taking up space. You say things like I could be wrong, but, or this might be a bad idea, but, or I don't want to upset anyone, but, and those phrases don't make you likable. They make you forgettable. People don't respect those who are desperate for approval. They respect those who are clear, those who say what they mean, even when it's uncomfortable. This doesn't mean you should be rude. It doesn't mean you stop caring about people's feelings. It just means you stop prioritizing being liked over being clear. Because clarity is a form of respect. It shows you trust people to handle the truth, that you're not managing their emotions for them. When you try to be liked, you dilute your message. You soften your boundaries. You say yes when you mean no. You agree when you don't. You avoid saying the hard thing because you're afraid of how they'll react. And all of that makes you less trustworthy. Because people can feel when you're not being real, when you're performing niceness instead of being honest. Here's what happens when you stop trying to be liked. You become more trustworthy because people know where they stand with you. They know you'll tell them the truth, even when it's hard, and trust is more valuable than being liked. This also applies to saying no when you can't say no. When you say yes to everything, you lose respect, not just from others, from yourself. Because every yes that should have been a no is a betrayal of your time, your energy, your boundaries. Learning to say no calmly is one of the most powerful shifts you can make. Not aggressive no, not defensive no. Just clear no. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. No thank you, no explanation, no apology, just a statement. And here's the surprising part. When you start saying no, people don't like you less, they respect you more. Because you're clear, you're honest, you're not wasting their time or yours. This is especially important for people in their 20s and 30s, because this is the time when you're building your sense of self, your boundaries, your voice. And if you spend these years trying to be liked by everyone, you'll lose yourself. So practice this. The next time you want to say no, say it without softening, without cover-explaining. Just know I can't, and sit in the discomfort. Let the other person have their reaction, without rushing to fix it. You're not responsible for making everyone comfortable. You're responsible for being clear. And clarity is kindness, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Stop trying to be liked. Start being clear. And watch how people start listening. Not because they like you more, but because they trust you. Chapter 7. The sentence structure of strong people. The way you structure a sentence reveals how you think, and how you think determines whether people listen. Strong people structure sentences differently. They don't bury the point. They don't hide behind softeners. They don't dilute with qualifiers. They say what they mean. First, directly. Weak sentence structure sounds like this: I was just thinking, maybe. If it's okay with everyone, we could possibly consider trying something different. But I don't know, it's just an idea. That's not a sentence. That's a negotiation, and it signals uncertainty. Strong sentence structure sounds like this: let's try something different. That's it. Clear, direct, no apology. The difference is in the structure. Strong sentences start with the main point. Weak sentences bury it. Strong sentences use active language. Weak sentences use passive. Strong sentences are short. Weak sentences meander. Here are the words that weaken your sentences. And you probably use them without realizing, just as an "I just wanted to say," or "I'm just thinking," just as an apology. It minimizes. It says, "I know I'm taking up space. Sorry, remove it. I wanted to say, I'm thinking," much stronger. Maybe, as in maybe we could. Or maybe it's just me. But maybe is hedging. It's uncertainty presenting itself as possibility. Replace it with certainty. We could, I think, much clearer. I think this one is tricky because sometimes it's appropriate, but most of the time it's a softener. I think we should change this. Why not just "we should change this"? If it's your thought, we already know you think it. You don't need to announce it. Kind of, sort of, both of these dilute. I'm kind of concerned about this. Either you're concerned or you're not. Kind of makes it vague. I'm concerned about this, much stronger. Another pattern, ending sentences with questions. We should probably leave soon. That upward inflection turns a statement into a question. It turns certainty into doubt. We should leave soon, period. Not a question, a statement. Strong people also use fewer words. They don't say "what I'm trying to say is." They just say it. They don't say "the point I'm trying to make is." They just make it. Here's the practice. Record yourself speaking, or just pay attention in your next conversation. Notice how many times you use just, maybe, I think, kind of, and start removing them. Not all at once, just one at a time. Notice how you structure your sentences. Do you start with the point, or do you bury it? Practice starting with the main idea, no preamble, no setup, just the point. And notice how people respond, how they listen more closely, how they take you more seriously, because you sound like someone who knows what they're saying, someone who doesn't need permission, someone worth listening to. Chapter 8. How to handle interruptions without losing your calm. You're speaking, and someone cuts you off. Your instinct is to stop, to let them take over, to shrink back, or to get louder, to talk over them, to fight for the space. But neither of those responses gives you power. Here's what strong people do when they're interrupted. They don't stop, and they don't fight. They just keep speaking calmly, at the same volume, like the interruption didn't happen. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly effective, because most people who interrupt expect you to stop. They expect you to yield. And when you don't, when you just continue, it signals something. It signals that your words matter, that you're not giving up the floor just because someone tried to take it. You're not being aggressive. You're not raising your voice. You're just finishing your sentence. And usually the person who interrupted will stop, because they realize you're not yielding. Another option, pause. Let them interrupt. Let them finish, and then calmly say, "I wasn't finished." Not defensive, not angry. Just a statement, "I wasn't finished." And then you continue, exactly where you left off. This shows respect for yourself. It shows that you're not going to abandon your point just because someone else started talking. And it shows respect for them too, because you're not talking over them. You're just reclaiming your space. You can also be more direct. If someone keeps interrupting, you can say, "Let me finish, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts." Calm, clear, not accusatory, just setting a boundary. Here's what not to do. Don't apologize. Don't say, "Sorry, can I just finish?" You didn't do anything wrong. You don't need to apologize for speaking. Just I wasn't finished or let me finish. Also, don't get louder. When you raise your voice to compete with an interruption, you've already lost because now you're reacting. You're in a power struggle, but when you stay calm, when you keep your tone even, you maintain your ground. You're not competing, you're just continuing. Handling interruptions is about self-respect. It's about valuing your words enough to finish them, even when someone tries to take the space. And here's the shift. When you handle interruptions calmly, people start interrupting you less because they learn that you're not going to stop, that you're not going to shrink, that interrupting you doesn't work, and they adjust. So practice this. The next time someone interrupts, don't stop, just keep speaking. Or pause and then I wasn't finished, and notice how it feels. To hold your ground, to finish your thought, to not give away your space. You don't need to fight for attention, you just need to calmly claim it, and keep it. Chapter 9. Speaking in conflict without exploding. Conflict is where most people lose their voice. Either they explode, raising their voice, getting aggressive, saying things they regret, or they shut down, going quiet, swallowing their words, avoiding the confrontation entirely. Neither of these is power. Both are reactions. Both come from a loss of ground. Speaking in conflict without exploding is about staying with yourself, about holding your center even when someone is challenging you. And that requires a different kind of strength. Not loud strength, steady strength. Here's the first principle. Your voice stays level, no matter what. When someone raises their voice, you don't match it, you stay calm. When someone accuses you, you don't defend immediately. You pause. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't take the bait. This is incredibly hard because when you're triggered, your body wants to react. Your heart rate spikes. Your breath quickens. Your voice wants to rise. But if you let it, you've lost. Not the argument, but yourself. So you regulate your body first, before you speak. You breathe slowly, deeply. You feel your feet on the ground. You relax your jaw. You soften your shoulders. And then you speak from that grounded place. Your words also stay simple. When you're in conflict, the temptation is to explain, to justify, to defend every point. But long explanations in conflict sound like desperation. Instead, you make short, clear statements. I see it differently. That's not accurate. I don't agree. No need to elaborate unless asked. Just a clear statement of where you stand. You also don't match aggression with aggression. There's a difference between firmness and aggression. Firmness is grounded. It's clear. It's calm. Aggression is reactive. It's loud. It's trying to dominate. And people respect firmness. They don't respect aggression. So you can be firm without raising your voice. You can hold your boundary without attacking. I'm not okay with that. This doesn't work for me. I need you to stop. Firm, clear, calm. Another tool: don't engage with every point. When someone is throwing accusations, when they're listing everything you've done wrong, you don't have to respond to all of it. You can just address the core. I hear that you're upset. Let's talk about what actually happened. You're not getting pulled into the spiral. You're bringing it back to center. And if you feel yourself losing your calm, if you feel your voice starting to rise, you pause, you say, I need a moment, and you step away, not to avoid, but to regulate, so you can come back grounded. This is the emotional peak of the book. Because conflict is where your voice is tested. It's where you find out if you can stay with yourself when someone is pushing you. And when you can speak calmly in conflict, you realize something. You don't need to explode to be heard. You don't need to fight to hold your ground. You just need to stay steady and speak from that steadiness. And that steadiness is more powerful than any outburst. Chapter 10. Speak once, mean it. You say something, no one responds, so you say it again and again and again, and with each repetition, your words lose weight, because if you have to keep saying it, maybe it wasn't that important. This is the trap of repetition. You think repeating will make people listen, but it does the opposite. It makes you sound unsure, like you're trying to convince yourself as much as them. People who speak with authority don't repeat themselves. They say it once, and they let it land. If no one responds, they don't fill the silence with more words. They just wait, and that waiting creates pressure, not on them, on the listener. Because when you speak once and stop, the silence says, I've said what I needed to say. What happens next is up to you. And that puts the responsibility back on them. To respond, to consider, to engage. But when you keep repeating, you take that responsibility on yourself. You're chasing, you're begging. You're trying to force them to hear you. And force doesn't work. Here's the practice. The next time you say something important, say it once, clearly, and then stop. Don't rephrase. Don't add more explanation. Don't check if they heard. Just stop and wait. It will feel uncomfortable. The silence will feel heavy. You want to feel it, but don't sit in it. Let the words settle. Let the other person process. And if they still don't respond, you can move on. You don't need to force it. You said what you needed to say, and that's enough. This also applies to convincing. When you're trying to persuade someone, the instinct is to keep talking, to list more reasons, to find the right argument that will finally make them agree. But the more you talk, the weaker you sound, because you're trying too hard. Instead, make your point briefly, clearly, and then stop. If they don't agree, that's okay. You're not responsible for making them see it your way. You're just responsible for saying what you think. Speaking once and meaning it is about self-respect. It's about trusting that your words have value, that they don't need to be repeated to matter. And it's about letting go of the outcome. You can't control whether people listen, but you can control whether you dilute your message by saying it over and over. So speak once, mean it, and let it be, and watch how people start taking you more seriously. Because you sound like someone who doesn't need their validation. Someone who just says what's true and moves on. Final chapter. When you change your voice, you change your position. This book is not about your voice, not really. It's about your position, your place in the room, your relationship to yourself, because your voice is just a reflection of your internal state, of whether you believe you deserve to be heard, of whether you're grounded or scrambling. When you change how you speak, when you pause, when you lower your tone, when you stop over-explaining, you're not just changing your voice. You're changing your relationship to your own authority. You're claiming space. You're standing in your worth. And people feel that. They don't hear the techniques. They don't notice that you paused for 3 seconds. They don't consciously register that your voice is lower, but they feel the shift. They feel that you're steadier, that you're not asking for permission, that you trust your own words, and they respond to that feeling. This is the real transformation, not louder, not more aggressive, not more performative, just steadier, more grounded, more present. And when you speak from that place, you don't need to repeat yourself. You don't need to convince. You don't need to fight for attention. You just speak. And people listen because they feel the center in you, and they trust it. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. Every conversation is a chance to practice. Pausing before you respond, lowering your voice, speaking once and letting it land. And over time, these practices become who you are. Not things you do, who you are. And one day you'll notice people listen when you speak. Not because you demanded it, but because you sound like someone worth listening to. Your voice is not about sound, it's about state. It's about where you're speaking from. Whether you're speaking from fear or from ground, from apology or from presence. And when you speak from presence, from that inner center, everything changes. Not just how people hear you, but how you hear yourself. Closing. You don't need to be louder, you need to be steadier, and people feel that. You've learned the invisible mistakes that make people tune you out. You've learned to stop over-explaining, to speak slower, to lower your voice, to pause. You've learned to stop trying to be liked, to structure your sentences with clarity, to handle interruptions without losing your calm, to speak in conflict without exploding, to speak once and mean it. These are not tricks, they're shifts. Shifts in how you relate to your own voice, how you claim your space, how you trust your words. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Until one day you realize you're not trying anymore. You're just speaking, and people are listening. Not because you're louder, but because you're grounded. Not because you're performing, but because you're present. Your voice has always had power. You just needed to learn how to use it. And now you do. Thank you for being here. End of audiobook.